What's up, everybody? Peter Exis Okafor here. Welcome to another episode of All Things Music. And boy, do we got an episode today. It's slowly seeping into the consciousness of people with AI and music. We knew with visual artists it was hitting kind of hard, but AI Drake and AI in art, that is um, the title of today's episode. So, about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. So talking the second or third week in April, 2023. Heard on my sleeve a uh, a duet with Drake and The Weeknd. It drops. It gets almost a million streams, on Spotify and a couple other services. And Universal, who Drake and The Weeknd. I don't know if they distribute them, so I'm not sure if they're both Universal or whether they're subsidiaries of Universal. Universal freaks out, calls the streaming services, and it's like, pull this song hard on my sleeve because this is quote unquote fake. Well, guess what? I mean, sound a lot like Drake and The Weeknd to me. They pulled it. This song is still available on YouTube and probably always will be because that's just how YouTube rolls. And so it's interesting. So we haven't heard anything from The Weeknd, which is no surprise because he rarely speaks. But he did come out last week, and now we're talking the first week of May, saying he might drop his whole Weeknd persona, maybe just go by Abel, which is his first name. So we'll see. Drake was kind of laughed the whole heart of my sleeve off at first and then post on social media like this is wrong, yada, yada, yada. But it was kind of half-hearted, to be honest with you. I think Universal had to jump on him like, dude, we need you to come out against this stronger. So that was the first time this happened. And then another single called Winter's Cold by Drake is dropped. And I don't think that ever made it to um, Spotify or Apple or the streaming services, but that is on YouTube. And that's a damn good song. So essentially, how this is going is somebody right now somebody's making the backing track. So, what I call the groove, the drum beat and the bass and whatever. But they're also, putting in, using synthesizers, the melodies, the hooks, and, you know, sometimes the top line, sometimes not. And then whoever does that sings in their own voice. They write the lyrics and sing it, and then they run the vocals through some sort of AI. And you can Google it to find out what AI, um, what the free AI generators are for this. But they run their vocals through, and it sounds like Drake, and then they drop it back in. And so, I mean, what happens is they put a bunch of music through um, these AI generators, and they study Drake's voice and The Weeknd's voice and yada yada yada, and then they, when they get someone else's voice, they, so you have your lyrics, but you sound like Drake. So as of right now, they're not generating the actual music. They're just, generating the vocals. Um, Very interesting. I tell you, I mean, "Winter's Cold" is a very good song. You know, uh, that's saying something from Drake because Drake has the most top 10 songs in the history of the music business at 68, and I think second place is Taylor Swift with 45, and so Drake I think has can't remember, it was 9 or 12 number ones. Drake has the most at 9 number two songs. It takes a little. I mean, the Beatles right now are on the top with 20 number one songs. Mariah Carey's at 19. It takes a lot of luck to get a number one song. That's why I focus on top 10 and top fives. Drake is also has the most all time at top five songs, and I believe it is 35 top five songs. So to say that Winter's Cold is one of his best songs when he's a prolific songwriter in the old school sense is that he can write hooks and he consistently delivers with hits is something. Um, this opens up a lot of questions. First of all, uh, who owns the voice? And you know you have to understand how shady these record companies are with their contracts. So I look at it as sort of name, image, likeness that you own. You know, you're born with your voice, you own that voice, but that's going to be, and I think for a Drake and a the weekend, I think they have the money and the pull and whatever to say, hey, you don't own the rights to my voice. Another interesting thing is with all these catalogs being sold, when you sold the music, because there's two sometimes there's two separate sales. I know, particularly with Bob Marley, they sold the music early on, but they still own the name, image, likeness of Bob Marley, and the family's done very, very well on name, image, likeness. They probably made more money off of name, image, likeness than they have on the actual music. So because Bob Marley consistently, um, you know, ranks as far as music celebrities who have passed. He's always showing up in the top 10 and the top 20, and nobody's really playing Bob Marley on the radio anymore. So it's the name, image, likeness. So so the Marley family separated that out. Now with this whole another issue of who owns the voice, is that a third thing? I mean, does the Marley family own Bob Marley's voice, or does whoever bought the catalog own Bob Marley's voice? That's a very interesting question. I think, since the family's made very good money on name, image, likeness, I think they'll be able to get some very good lawyers and be persuasively argue that, they did not sell the rights to the sound of his voice. Um, I really don't think, this is a whole, I mean, uh, unless you blatantly sign away, the rights to your voice in the contract, I think the artist will win out. And of course, now, I mean, don't put it past these record companies to stick that in there. So to say the least, the record labels have lost their shit over this whole AI voice situation. They don't know what to do. There's time out chaos. And they're as usual. The labels are playing catch up. And if you go and listen to my episode on Does Today's Music Suck, I talk about all of the advancements in technology in the music and getting music to consumers, and how the record companies were on the sidelines for every single one of those, and reacted poorly to them, and then adjusted and figured it out. And it looks like, true to nature, the record labels are, where they normally are at, and freaking out and like, oh my God, the sky is falling. And again, uh, the CD that was not, the record companies didn't produce that. That was, I believe, Sony or I don't, but the CD, Napster, American Idol, I mean, you look at, they laughed off American Idol, like, get some of your artists you just signed on there. And of course, they went and signed a bunch of artists off American Idol, made a lot of money, but they laughed it off and, probably the network, whoever runs that, went to them and you want in on this? They're like, no, that's stupid. Nobody's gonna watch that. I mean, that's always been the how the record labels act. So Grimes, interestingly enough, she just has gone independent. After I don't know what label she was with, but she just split with her label, and she came out in social media and said, "Anybody wants to use my voice in music, go right ahead, and we'll split the profits 50-50." I think this is where it's going, but um, I'm sure that's where it's going, but there's money to be made. So yeah, going back to this, the who owns the voice, the courts will decide before the U.S. Congress, because this kind of stuff, technology always runs ahead of the legislative body. So the courts will act, before Congress ever will. And I believe what will happen is that, unless your record contract explicitly states that the record company owns the likeness of your voice. You own the likeness to your voice, and I mean, they may not, even if that's in the contract, they may not stick. Eventually, get a good lawyer, and we'll see how that goes. Because God gave the artist their voice. Um, but that's still, that's one of a lot of the folks who follow in the music industry on YouTube and have shows commenting often they're kind of like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, I think that's probably what will happen, because I mean there are patterns, and this isn't the first time something like this has happened. um so yeah, I mean the record labels are freaking out right now. I like to cite Rick Beato a lot. Rick Beato has a episode from late April of 2023 this year where he talks about AI, and he makes some pretty good arguments. But my argument when I was talking to people about it is, you know, the labels have a problem, with AI until Drake walks into the president of Universal with a song that has AI James Brown, AI Michael Jackson, AI Prince on it. Then they're like, oh, wait a minute. Well, wait. Well, yeah, we can make money off of that. Yeah, let's roll with that. So I think, quickly, artists are going to see, hey, wait a minute, there's gold in them hills, and then they're going to bring the labels some songs they can't resist. So Rick Beato, he talks about you know AI really takes this whole immortality of music artists to an entirely different level. Very interesting, very very interesting. Because it was a static immortality, and now it's not. Because I mean, as I said, I mean Drake, AI James Brown, AI Michael Jackson, AI Prince. I mean, Michael Jackson's estate's about to be sold. There, rumors are, 800 to 900 million dollars. I mean, you need to make that back, and regardless of what the family says, once they sell that, they don't. And I'm pretty sure now with AI, they're gonna for 800 $900 million, they're gonna want control of the rights of Michael's voice too. So they want, you're paying that money out, you want to make it back, and what better way to make it back is doing current duets with Drake or her or uh, Ariana Grande or whoever, you name them. So, yeah, that's you know, I think you're going to see about face from the record labels pretty quickly. So, I look at this whole new phenomenon as kind of like, um, I always talk at the end of my show about some of my own art and what's out there, and I remind people at the end of every episode that I have two science fiction fantasy novels and a novella there on Amazon. But this reminds me of fan fiction and a little bit, and um, some authors have embraced fan fiction and others have fought it vehemently. And I think, that's what's going to happen with this whole AI situation. Just as streaming, I mean, it took the Beatles. The Beatles didn't go on well into the 2000s, maybe close to 2010 before the Beatles were in the streaming services. And they weren't the only ones that took their time to get on the streaming services. And there's still some old school artists, who are loudly, even though I think they're on streaming services against their will because probably they don't own their masters, but do not and are not fans of the streaming services. And then, of course, visual artists are painters and drawer friends with Dall-E and Midjourney, and so they're saying they're actually stealing their art and taking bits and pieces, and there is a lawsuit, which some of them are. And so it's interesting because I have some artist colonies, close by, and for the most part, most of the artists I talk to, my friends, aren't really worried about the AI thing, and they also, copyright differently than writers and musicians, and are not as copy neurotic when it comes to copywriting as writers and musicians are. So it's interesting. But yeah, so this is not just happening in music; it's happening in other areas as well. So my view is, you got to just embrace these new technologies. I was pretty anti-streaming for a while, but yeah, at some point you can't, really, um, you're not going to beat it, so you have to adjust. And as a writer, I haven't messed around with Chat GPT yet, but I would not be at all, put in some prompts on a novel I want to do it, have it spit out something, I wouldn't even call it a first draft, but a rough draft, or maybe feed in because my novel from the first two and then novels and have it kick out something and I can have an idea. It will certainly cut down on the time it takes to write a novel. When writing a novel is very time consuming. So, I mean, I'm open to actually using it. I've dabbled in Dall-E and Midjourney. I haven't come up with any good stuff yet. And I know some of my writer friends are very adamant they won't use Dall-E or Midjourney like for their book covers or anything. But change is here, and ultimately these things become a tool for artists. Certainly make how you make music changed with digital audio workstations. GarageBand and whatnot. I think the late 80s, early 90s is when Pro Tools hit, and that was a game changer. And that brought costs down a lot. So you have things going on. I mean, in the music industry, you have the old system, lots of money and few distributors, and now you have a new system with easy distribution but low money, and books the same way. Printed books, there were gatekeepers and it was, hard to get into a bookstore. Now, um, there are plenty of, with ebooks, you can distribute it yourself and get on Amazon, but of course the drawback is discoverability for in both of the for musicians and for writers, and so there's a glut, and a lot of that stuff is good. I mean, you can go on now to Fiverr and find good editors for a novel that will do a very good job of editing your novel, and put it out there and it's good quality, and then you can get people to format it and whatever correctly for Amazon, and it looks professional. But again, discoverability and you know the the book companies, and at least as of right now, uh, I say this, but with question marks and parentheses, record labels, had the upper hand when it comes to marketing. So yeah, it's a new world with AI. Things we weren't even talking about AI in January, and here we are every other week. Something new about AI is coming out. You have former CEOs and people deeply embedded in AI industry concerned, that things are happening too quickly with AI. So, interestingly enough, I was one of the doomsdayers for AI forever, and I, would always, argue with folks about the Terminator scenario. Oh no, that will never happen. Now you have, credible people, even the former Google, the godfather of AI, essentially not coming out and saying that, hey, the Terminator scenario is a possibility. But, honestly, um, I mean, a lot of warfare now is cyber warfare. I mean, that's essentially what the Russians did in the 2016 presidential election, was use cyber warfare through um, uh, yeah, social media and other ways to affect the election. And of course, there's constant attacks on uh, bank infrastructure, hospitals, governments. When it comes to cyber warfare. So, we're already in a an interesting phase where um, it's not just bombs and bullets anymore. It's cyber. And so I think when I look at it, I kind of look at AI as the Vulcans from Star Trek. One of the things is I'm not sure. I mean, you can teach a computer to have emotions, and emotions are important to art. So, yeah, eventually you'll be able to probably, type in, I want a song that sounds like Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and Run DMC and Jay-Z, and it will spit out something, and maybe it'll be good and maybe it won't be good. But, to put together the total package with the hook and the right lyrics, I don't know if that's, if a computer will ever be able to do that. Again, part of that is understanding emotions and playing to emotions. I don't know. One of the blind spots, consistent blind spots that AI has had is context and you know, um, what they can do that we can't do is process a lot of information very quickly, and that's their advantage. But when context and figuring out, you know, um, facial expressions and that kind of stuff is very the subtle things is very difficult for AI. So I don't, I'm not, will AI be writing novels, 5 to 10 years? I don't think so. I know they're doing textbooks, but writing a textbook is different than writing a novel. Yeah, they can do, AI can mimic Drake's voice, but can they write a total Drake song? I don't, but if so, then Grimes is onto something. Hey, let the folks do it and get half, and what will happen is we'll have you'll go on to Spotify and it'll be Drake and it'll be AI Drake, and Drake will be making half of the money off of AI Drake. Rick Beato, interestingly, talks about he sees there'll be he thinks AI can go all the way. I'm skeptical, but he can see, where there'll be total artists or AI for the labels. And then he's like, well, why, why doesn't Spotify do their own AI artists? Because he was like showing some of the reactions to Winter's Cold from Drake, and he's like, they don't care that it's not Drake. It sounds good and it's a good song. And so he's thinking like total AI artist, um, and Tidal and everybody doing their own AI artists. And who knows, maybe, but I don't see the whole I don't we'll see on that. But going back to my fear of the the Terminator scenario, I just don't I think the cyber wars will continue, and I think there'll be an aspect of AI that will you know different sides. I mean, here in the U.S., the right will have their cyber warfare tools, and the left will have theirs, and they'll fight it out, and try to hack and influence and whatnot. But the real question is what happens, and this is what everybody's speculating. It sounds like even the experts in AI think at some point AI will become independent of human control and will have its own say on things, so to speak. And so, you know, I mean, with Terminator, we assume that AI is going to act like human beings, and hey, we're stronger than you, let's dominate. I think again it's gonna be Vulcan and very, very, very logical, and the whole premise of the Terminator is like all humans do is fight wars, and the environment's terrible, and let's just get rid of them. Well, here's the thing. AI is contributing to global warming. It's very um, energy intensive to create AI, and to keep AI up and running is very costly, and it's going to be uh, very cost a lot of pollution. So, I mean, I don't know. And as far as will AI just condemn all humans as bad? I doubt it. I mean, I think what's going to happen is they'll take this independent AI is going to take sides, and you know, approach things as a Vulcan. It'll either be neutral or we'll jump in and take a side on things. And so we'll see how that goes. There's a show that ended about 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, Person of Interest. I believe it was on CBS. And that's what, I mean, it was an AI that would uh, help people who couldn't get help from the police, and they assembled a little team. It's a little bit kind of which um, uh, the Equalizer with Queen Latifah. There's an AI aspect, but it's human controlled. But we had Kit from Knight Rider back in the day. We had um, from Legends of Tomorrow. What's their Gideon? And then, of course, we have Hal from Space Odyssey, who was not and who turned on humanity. So there are various ways of, of looking at how AI is going to turn out. And personally, I think it'll be a little bit of all of them. So I'm not freaking out. I was, but thinking it through as this thing looks like it's becoming closer to reality, I'm not freaking out as much. And I figured you know, this Russia right now is not doing well in the Ukraine, and they're having problems finding soldiers. So yeah, Russia's going to want to use some unmanned drones, where it's doing its own thing. And so um, we'll see what happens. I mean, if this AI is Vulcan, like I think it is, and very rational, we'll see that Russia basically started an unprovoked war with Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine did nothing to Russia. So, I mean, will this independent thinking AI do Russia's bidding, or will it just fly, be like, fuck you, we're not doing this, or will it go after Russia? Who knows? But this is the age and the time that we're living in, and yeah, at some point AI will become self-aware, and whether that means and will have its own independence. Does that mean it's sentient? I mean, what is sentience? And philosophers are fighting over that concept for many years. But we are living in interesting times, and we'll see what happens. So anyway, yeah, uh, got a little philosophical there for a minute, but thanks for coming through. 5 albums now. On all the streaming services and also here on YouTube. Got 2 science fiction fantasy novels there on Amazon, and I also have a novella. So thanks for coming through, and I'll see you next episode.